Hello, my name is Sarah O'Donohue, and today's debate topic will be about the differences between in-home ABA and tele-ABA services. I will be your moderator and stater for today's topic. Shelby, Katie, and Lauren will be talking about the benefits of in-home ABA and the negative aspects of tele-ABA. Emily and Destiny will be informing you about the positive aspects of tele-ABA and the negative aspects about in-home ABA. This short video will give you a brief description about what we will be talking today.
Telehealth is a way that we can bring ABA services into all homes throughout all communities in the state. It allows us to provide ABA services to rural areas where they don't have BCBAs, tutors, and the trained professionals in order to work with their kids with autism.
So the Center for Disease Control and Prevention recent estimates in 2018 have suggested that 1 in every 59 individuals now have been diagnosed with ASD, which was stated in an article called Telehealth as a Model for Proving Behavior Analytical Intervention to Individuals with Autism Spectrum Disorder. Because of this factor, the use of ABA services has become more valuable and recognized by society as an intervention procedure for children who are autistic. TeleABA, which has consisted of using technology to deliver ABA services and in-home services, have been offered as options to treat individuals with autism spectrum disorder. The real question of this debate is which method is the best way to treat patients and which one is the most ethical form of treatment. For today's debate, each of the people will have about 5 minutes to discuss their topic and the ethical code of their choosing. I will be giving a brief synopsis of each ethical code before the presenter starts presenting their information. Our goals for this presentation is to introduce the methods and negative aspects of both in-home and tele-ABA services. We wish to help others make informative decisions on which technique best fits their clients' needs. The first ethical code that will be discussed is 2.09, which is about cost efficiency of intervention options.
Hey y'all, my name is Shelby Dennis. I will be discussing the pros of in-home ABA and the negatives of tele-ABA in relation to code 2.09. To start out with, startup costs for in-home ABA are extremely low when compared to tele-ABA. Essentially all you need is the client, the technician, and the BCBA. For in-home, technology is not required. So for tele-ABA, that definitely is a necessity. Dyer in 2018 wrote an article that just said in-home ABA is accessible to a large percentage of clients, specifically because of low startup costs, which just allows clients to gain services as quickly as possible. Rural areas don't always have the funding for tele-ABA equipment, let alone to provide those services. I've seen a lot of articles in the past about rural areas and tele-ABA and just how they go hand in hand. But really, it comes down to if that specific area has the funding or not, and sometimes in-home ABA definitely is the best option. In-home ABA proves to be more ethical long-term just because it gives clients services as fast as possible. Also, it's really good for early intervention. And sometimes it really is just the best option possible. Furthermore, I wanted to talk about how in-home ABA saves the company time and money long term. With in-home ABA, you're not required to hire separate IT staff, purchase software, which costs the company, money alone. And miscommunication opportunities are definitely avoided when doing in-home therapy. I know for tele-ABA, it's like the exact opposite. You definitely are required to hire IT staff. You need to purchase software, and miscommunication opportunities definitely are more prevalent. When using tele-ABA, virtual explanations are likely to be misunderstood, which could lead to more serious problems that affects the child or the child's well-being. It also wastes the company's time and money. eVisit wrote a really good article in 2018 that just talked about how virtual explanations and modeling, can't really effectively train staff. And sometimes it causes more harm than good, which I definitely agree with. I've had an experience, just a basic one, where my BCBA, we were working on brushing the client's teeth. She told me to brush his teeth. There was some sort of miscommunication where I didn't hear it appropriately. Parents weren't brushing his teeth. So, the client didn't brush his teeth for weeks, which led to medical bills that the company was then responsible for. So, if the BCBA would have just done in-home supervision, that definitely would have, gotten rid of that miscommunication opportunity. So personally, communicating in person has been the easiest for me when connecting with my BCBA. You just get that one-on-one interaction. And TeleABA, usually when you're modeling or doing virtual explanations, it definitely interrupts your session and kind of takes time away from the client. Furthermore, I wanted to talk about the cons of TeleABA, how just client care suffers when connecting electronically. Usually when you're connecting electronically like this, you're not able to evaluate the client's physical state appropriately, which can lead to hospital visits, urgent care visits, lawsuits, other bills that the company is all responsible for paying. So that's something you definitely want to avoid, and you can avoid that with in-home therapy. Furthermore, I wanted to talk about a personal experience with my BCBA who was pregnant. She did all her in-person visits at the beginning of her pregnancy and saved all of her TeleABA supervision for the last few months of her pregnancy. During that time, the client was itching inappropriately. He would run out of camera views, so the BCBA wasn't, really getting the full understanding of the situation. I informed parents, I was tracking the behavior, and it definitely continued. The parents really valued that BCBA's opinion, so when the BCBA said it wasn't a big deal, they kind of brushed it off, didn't think it was a big deal either. Turns out the client had really bad pinworms and he got hospitalized, and that led to a lot of medical bills that the company was then responsible for paying for. So this definitely could have been avoided if she would have just done in-person supervision visits. And I definitely think that would have been the best option for that situation.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily Boudry and I will be discussing the efficacy of TeleABA along with its cost efficiency. So as we know, the field of technology has rapidly grown in the past 3 decades, which has resulted in new ways of introducing ABA therapy to individuals with autism. And one of them being a telehealth model of behavior consultation, which research has supported in being not only an effective form of presenting intervention, but also very cost effective as well. So in regards to telehealth being effective, which aligns with code 2.09, treatment intervention efficacy, an article by Matulachek et al. From 2016 describes a study conducted involving 3 children with ASD. And the study indicates the intervention strategies using telehealth ABA behavior consultation resulted in decreasing challenging behavior in all 3 children. So the authors of this study theorized that antecedent strategies would prevent the likelihood of challenging behavior and increase the likelihood that the children would engage in appropriate behavior. And for each participant, a behavior support plan based on the function of their challenging behavior was designed, which included antecedent-based strategies, FCT procedures, and a differential reinforcement strategy. So parent training was also a big aspect of this study, which included review of task analyses, video modeling of the strategy, and practice with their child, while the researcher provided performance feedback. And as we all know, parent training is a huge aspect of and an indicator of the success of an intervention, and the fact that telehealth methods were able to do that successfully is a big indicator of why telehealth is a good point of intervention. So this all took place via telehealth methods, which provided to be successful in decreasing challenging behavior for all participants while increasing appropriate behaviors. So, in addition to not only being effective as a way to deliver treatment, telehealth behavior consultation has been shown to be significantly more cost effective than in home therapy. An article by Lindgren et al. From 2016 describes a study which resulted in a reduction of the cost of ABA treatment by nearly half through clinic based telehealth and by almost two-thirds through in home telehealth for 107 participants. So, taking a look at the graph in front of you, the table, you can see in column one, group one represents in home therapy, and then group two is clinic telehealth. Group three is home telehealth. So, group two and three represents the telehealth aspect of things. And then on the left hand side, you can see the staff costs, facility costs, family costs, and the total cost. And I want to focus on the total cost, the mean total cost per child. So in group one, again, which shows you the in home therapy, it's roughly $6,000 for that per child. And then group two, you can see the clinic telehealth, which is roughly $3,000 per child. And then group three, home telehealth, is right around $2,000. So even though clinic telehealth is more expensive than home telehealth, it's still right about half of what in-home therapy would cost per child. So these are pretty significant numbers based on the visual and also additional research. You can see that a major disadvantage for doing in-home therapy is that it's not nearly as cost effective as in-home therapy. Thank you.
Okay, so the next ethical code we'll be talking about is 3.0, which is about assessing behavior.
Hello, my name is Lauren, and I'll be discussing the benefits of in home therapy as well as the negatives of using teletherapy using code 3.0, assessing behavior. As a behavior analysis, we need to conduct a proper assessment in order to recommend a treatment that is specific and tailored to our client's needs. In home therapy focuses on improving a child's independency, their social skills, verbal behavior, academics, as well as their self help skills such as eating, toilet training, dressing, as well as the family interaction, such as going to the store or doing chores. By being able to implement the treatment in a natural setting, the child is more likely to learn it and feel comfortable because it's in their own living room, it's in their own bathroom. So they're comfortable in that setting, so they're able to go out to the school or out into society and use that. We determined this by evaluating the client and assessing the situation. In-home therapy gives you the advantage of actually being in the environment with the client. So you're able to follow the client from room to room or from different settings. So for teletherapy, only being able to view the environment on a small screen will make it hard to see the environmental issues that could be playing an effect on the actual problem behavior. You're only able to view that only room. So whatever's happening in that room is all you'll be able to see. The problem behavior might not even be going on. It could be in the living room or the bathroom or wherever. But wherever the teletherapy session is occurring in, that's all you'll be able to view. So it's hard to also get a sense of what the child's schedule is or understand what is maintaining this problem behavior. Because, like I said, the problem behavior couldn't possibly not be happening in that room. Another difficulty when using teletherapy on a computer, you are able to see the actual relationships within the family in a natural setting. You aren't able to pick up on family patterns or the actual parent and client interactions. Like I said, this is just due to being focused completely around a computer. Leaf JB wrote an article in 2017 discussing these issues that include how that could actually lead to analog setting. This type of setting could disguise these critical information that could actually be influencing the behavior. Analog setting means the client and family environment all change when engaging around the communication through the computer. Once the problem behavior is addressed, depending on the actual severity of the behavior, would determine whether even teletherapy could even be an option. In-home therapy is actually able to address these kind of situations immediately once being on site. As we know, many children with autism spectrum have serious behavioral problems that can involve like aggression or destruction or self-injury, which all these issues can slow down the developmental process, which can affect the treatment process. In the severe cases like I listed above, physical assistance may be needed, which teletherapy obviously would not be able to do compared to in-home therapy. This is why one of the main advantages of in-home therapy is being so closely involved with the treatment process. Before conducting an assessment, the parents must be informed properly on the actual procedure, who will participate, and how the resulting information will be used. Being in home, you're able to train the parents and support them through the process, as well as educating them by showing them in person how to implement these treatments, which will eventually lead to assisting in generalization. Teletherapy would have difficulty with this because they aren't able to demonstrate the treatment due to not being present and on a computer screen. Like we know, usually it's easier to learn something hands-on compared to watching a video. As well as the parents might not even feel confident using the computer or want to learn the ABA treatment through a computer, which she said above, the parent-child relationship is so important with the behavioral and social development of a child. The National Professional Development Center of Autism Spectrum Disorders actually stated that the parents implementing these interventions are just as effective as evidence-based practices, which is pretty huge. The final thing is written consent is also needed before implementing a treatment. In-home therapy, you're able to sign these documents in person, while teletherapy, you have to be shown online and printed and returned, which some people aren't technology advanced or have access to like a printer, so it could be difficult and complicated. Which this leads to me explaining the assessment results in code 3.0 for behavior analysis. Explain assessment results using language and graphic displays of data that are reasonably understandable to the client. When representing results on a screen, it may be difficult for the client to see or actually understand them. So in person for in-home ABA, you're able to break down the data and show them each part of how it was collected. And you could even physically show them the different types that were collected and put into graphs.
So telehealth ABA is a great way to provide convenient services to individuals who cannot access ABA services in person at a location near them. And services can be done at a distance. Clients can still receive proper support from healthcare providers through video streaming. These interventions utilize technology to provide remote communication, advice, and training using telecommunication software and technology-based training platforms. So on the infographic in front of you, you can see the many benefits of telehealth. These are a few. There's more than this, but the main ones is that it is convenient, opportunity for extra income, secure and private, simple, open access to more patients and reduce no-shows and cancellations, which is pretty important as well. Um, and in regards to Ethical Code 3.03, Behavior Analytic Assessment Consent, it is important to recognize that parents or the primary caregiver is responsible for consenting in order for the client to receive ABA therapy treatment. And before using any form of assessment, behavior analysts need to get parental consent. Therefore, parents need to be well informed and educated on exactly what procedures are being used and how they are planned to be implemented in their child's treatment plan. Telehealth ABA is a great way to ensure that parents are highly educated and prepared for the interventions and assessment being used on their child. And as we know, ABA in general is a big commitment for families, and if we can help provide the support through TeleABA and get that partnership with families, that's very important. So an article by Ferguson et al. Reviewed multiple studies which resulted in promising outcomes for parent training via telehealth. A direct quote from the article is, outcomes indicated that telehealth was an effective platform for parent training, increasing both parents' knowledge and implementation skills. So by providing proper training for parents, behavior analysts are giving them more information that will help them make an educated decision when giving consent to further assessment or intervention techniques. In addition, any form of medical consultation can be done through live video streaming in the privacy of your home, which can be beneficial if a child has anxiety caused by new environments or meeting new people. Parents and caregivers are able to provide a more stable environment for their children when receiving any form of assessment or consultation, which can affect the results of any form of assessment or treatment in a positive way. So now Destiny will continue with the advantages of using telehealth.
Thanks, Emily. So I'm also going to discuss a little bit of Code 3.02 with medical consultation, which basically states that if there is a possible underlying medical or biological factor that may be playing a role into the behavior, it is our job to wait for medical consultation before proceeding with interventions. A pro of telehealth is that it's not only used in just the field of ABA, other professions are also using this as well. So if a family is already used to the way telehealth works or have used it before, using this as an option for medical consultation is possible. One resource is MD Live, which is an online service 24/7 for medical therapy and dermatology appointments that can be done from the convenience of a phone, laptop, or tablet in your own home. Although these appointments cannot do in-depth assessments, can't give you lab results, or conduct scans, it can be a first convenient step for families to help them start their consultation. They don't have to worry about the hassle of going to a waiting room and waiting minutes or hours to see a doctor when they can make a phone call from their home. Another benefit of using telehealth for medical consultations is that once consent forms are in place, medical records can easily be shared via emails, applications, resources. Another resource is viewmychart.com, which all of your medical information can be uploaded right there. And then if there's consent, this information can be shared with other professionals that are on a client case. We've had a group member actually use both of the resources that I've mentioned, and no negative feedback was given on either of them. This ties into Code 3.05, which discusses client consent for records to be shared. Of course, written consent is needed, but once the proper consent is in place, this would allow for other professionals using telehealth apps and services to share information across as needed. Sometimes getting multiple professionals to be in the same location at the same time for meetings almost seems impossible, but as long as the proper consent is in place, sharing information
through protected feeds and file format, or doing live videos to do meetings is possible and much more convenient by using telehealth. Thank you.
Okay, the last code we'll be debating about today is code 2.06, which is about maintaining confidentiality.
Okay. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm going to be talking about some disadvantages to using this virtual method as opposed to using the more typical in-home ABA services when it comes to maintaining the BACB's standards for confidentiality. While telehealth is an accessible service for individuals who live in underserved communities, an additional common denominator amongst these individuals is that they typically reside in rural communities. In their article by Pollard and his colleagues, they note the concerns of maintaining confidentiality um, and specifically when it comes to families that live in rural areas. For example, a family who lives in a rural area, networking and mutual friends is a threat to protecting the identity of the clients. And another threat to maintaining confidentiality, as Shelby mentioned earlier, is that technology is imperative to TeleABA. And this relates to my second point in that in addition to the community limitations that can impact the confidentiality, there are technical issues that can also influence the protection of the client's identity. Peterson and colleagues have discussed several threats to confidentiality when using video conferencing applications such as Zoom, like we're using here, Skype, Google Hangouts, something that we've used on a daily basis. These are not deemed HIPAA compliant. In order to meet the HIPAA compliant standards, additional training would be required in order to download software, as well as creating HIPAA compliant login credentials that would meet these standards. So these are all things to consider. While telehealth is easily accessible, it also requires these additional trainings. And now I believe Destiny will be talking about the pros of using telehealth.
Thanks, Katie. I will be discussing using telehealth while maintaining confidentiality and adhering to the ethical codes provided by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. Client descriptors, identifying information, and other private health information is important to keep confidential and only be shared with those who consent has been given. Many people have heard of terms thrown out, such as HIPAA, but parents, caregivers, and other people may not actually know what this means or how it pertains to telehealth or their rights. Two popular acts that focus on client rights are the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, and the Health Insurance Portability and Privacy Act, HIPAA. Telehealth options are available according to the article by Boisvert et al. 2012 that follows certain guidelines to ensure that HIPAA and FERPA acts are being followed while delivering services to clients. This article suggests that there are some steps to consider when using telehealth. The first one is to explain the technology to families. If certain applications are required to be used, what materials may need to be used, such as a tablet, a laptop, access to Wi-Fi, and then also making sure the families have time to ask any questions and get full answers so that they can fully understand what telehealth is about and how this method of delivery will work. You should also give the positives and the negatives because, as we all know, even if there are a ton of positives like we've pointed out so far with telehealth, there are also negatives, and it's better to be upfront about it than to try to hide things. And then also to get consent to utilize the approach. Written consent is always best practice and also part of the codes to follow. So that way we can fall back on that if there's ever any questions, but it also gives permission for interventions and programming to occur via telehealth. Some caregivers may be worried that information may be seen or used by others because they are using the internet for services. Boisvert et al. 2012 article discusses safeguards that can be used to protect confidentiality while also being able to utilize telehealth as an option. Ways to protect and safeguard the information are to use data encrypted software, and there are multiple different versions so that Macs, PCs, in different modes can be covered. There are security certificates, which allow security connections from web browsers. And there are also private networks that offer services to make sure that everything is kept privately. So how does telehealth work for videos while maintaining confidentiality? There are services that are HIPAA compliant for video conferencing, specifically used for providing therapy, while also protecting the confidentiality of those in rural areas, those without transportation, or those who cannot get to therapy for many other reasons, according to Nelson and Patton in the 2016 article. By providing an alternative option for those where services are hard to receive due to location and weather prevents road driving conditions, and when things like car issues may arise, telehealth still provides an option for scheduled services to be continued that in-home services cannot provide, while still following confidentiality using the ethical codes provided by the BACB. Thank you.
Okay, so for conclusion, both of these techniques are highly recommended. It doesn't matter which one you use, you just have to try to pick a technique that best fits your client's needs. So for this part of our presentation, we'll be going over questions that some of the public might have. Our first question is, what is BCBA's ethical responsibility when considering client preferences in regards to the use of TeleABA? Well, for our ethical codes, it states in 2.02, it's our responsibility to provide services that we believe will best fit our clients' needs. So we need to take our clients' preferences or technology challenges into consideration. If they state that they can't use the technology that we want them to use after being trained, then we need to try to go back to using in-home services in order to make them feel more comfortable with their ABA therapy sessions. I also believe it states in code 2.09b that we need to always put our client's preference into consideration when we choose a technique for our clients. So by using their regards and questions, we will best be able to choose something that we believe best fits their needs, whether it's in-home or TeleABA services. Our second question is, what confidentiality issues might arise when providing either in-home or TeleABA services, and how we should address these concerns. Well, I believe that in order to maintain confidentiality, we need to make sure we always receive verbal consent from them when we are discussing their private information with other people or services. And if we decide to use computers to hold files, we need to make sure that if we are removing files, that we not only delete them from our main files, but we also delete them from our trash bin. By doing this, we're making sure it's completely off our hard drive and not accessed by anyone else. If we decide to share files, we need to make sure that they're all password protected, and that if someone is only someone that has or can have access to that file. So all files must be password protected in order to make sure confidentiality is achieved. As for paper files, we need to just make sure we shred them straight away and get rid of them right off the bat. We also need to make sure that if they're held in any filing cabinets, that they are locked for anyone's use. Our last question is, do you have any personal experiences related to this topic you would like to share?
Hey y'all, I've been doing in-home for about 3 years now, so I definitely have a lot of opportunities doing TeleABA and in-home. I found with TeleABA that connecting with bilingual families, or just like where English is not their first language, that is definitely the most difficult to connect electronically. I've also had a lot of trouble with technology. in the past, and those are definitely the negatives that I've seen with TeleABA. But I also have seen TeleABA used appropriately. My current BCBA does 1 week in person, her second week in person, and her third week is TeleABA. So it can definitely go both ways, but overall, I think connecting in person definitely is our best option to get that one-on-one interaction, get all your questions out, and your concerns. So overall, that is what I think.